You know, I thought growing up would be agreeing with the mother more, but, like, she is the one acting worse, right?
So, you're in my body and I'm in your body.
I'm old! I beg your pardon?
Oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper!
Freaky Friday.
You have a lot of stress, of course, as a single mother and psychologist, and she's getting married and all this is going on, but removing the door from your teenage daughter's room when she has a brother, a grandfather, and an almost stepdad all living in the house with her, that seems like the worst thing you could ever do to someone. That is so horrible. And they continue that trend of just treating each other so horribly that they could only be Americans. Freaky Friday stars Jamieleecurtis and Lindsay Lohan as mother and daughter, then daughter and mother, who get switched at the Chinese restaurant by a magical fortune cookie, and the only thing less believable than that is Lindsay Lohan saying that she doesn't want to kiss Mark Harmon. I mean, honestly, come on, look at him. Anyway, so they treat each other terribly, then they get body switched, and then they wake up and go, "Ah," and then start treating each other terribly in their other bodies. Yeah, and the whole thing is just so funny. Like, you would think, oh yeah, this is like a comedy, but it's got so much like drama and emotional element and family melodrama stuff, and also they've both got their own romances going on, that it's not going to be like primarily a comedy, right? But it is. It is the biggest focus and the thing it does the best by far. So they've switched bodies and then they have to live out a full day as each other. And when I tell you a day, you'll think it's a week and a half because they've got school and work. And if I was Jamie Lee alone, like, if I had to work a full day and do a parent-teacher conference and shuttle my kids back and forth and pick up my dad from the airport, whatever, and I had to do my rehearsal dinner, and this was all the day before my wedding, I think I would spontaneously combust. I couldn't do it. So I don't know how she's managing. Well, she's not, because she's got her daughter managing it for her and managing it badly. And when I say these two treat each other badly, I mean, there are simple little things, but there's also like great honking things. Honestly, once Jamie Lee gets into Lindsay's body, she's maybe not the worst of the two. She's pretty bad mothering a lot throughout the film. But Lindsay gets into her mother's body, and then the day before her wedding, she dyes her hair, cancels her caterer, and maxes out several credit cards. I just don't see how they would recover in their relationship from that, but yeah. There are a few films that are quite as naughties as this one, you know. It is a trashy remake of a film which became far more popular than the original, which makes it basically every Lindsay Lohan film she starred in before the age of 18. And it is one of those films that, like, if you know a woman who is kind of a little quirky or silly or kooky, but not as kooky or silly or weird as she thinks she is, and she's like in her 30s now, she'll tell you that this film was her whole childhood. But she'll also say that for A Cinderella Story, Mean Girls, The Princess Diaries, definitely, at least, yeah. So it's that kind of vibe, and it is on the level of those films, but there's like, you know, there's little levels in there. And I would say that it's very fair to call this very funny, very enjoyable, much more rewatchable than I was giving it credit for. I think if you lean into the word iconic, suddenly you're stretching too far for this film, though. We do have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. I'm not talking about the depiction of Chinese culture. Obviously, that's aged. I'm talking about Chad Michael Murray's character. Because never have I seen... I mean, it was hilarious to take this kind of unattainable, aloof, high school jock guy, literally named Chad, and kind of turn him into this, like, sad, like, desperate guy singing Britney Spears songs outside your window because he's attracted to your mother, but who's actually you. It was really funny. That was one of the things that leaned into it great. His character, of course, does kind of skip rope super quickly back and forth over the line of, is this character creepy and weird or not? I couldn't quite make up my mind about that rewatching it, if that's aged poorly or if it's actually still just really funny. And it kind of goes back and forth a little bit on that. It feels like the closest the film gets into leaning into like cringe comedy, which isn't my thing, but I don't know, for some reason I remembered the film as being much more that. And it's not. So I love that. I also think it's obvious Jamie Lee Curtis's acting chops, like comedically, were being vastly underestimated at this time. And it's nice to see 20 years later that she's really been able to come into her own with her bigger career revival, doing a lot more of that. Lindsay Lohan's also continued starring in things. Anyway, you can't hate this one. It's one of the most naughties films, and it is one of the best films to use the classic term I haven't heard in about 10 years, chick flick. We don't call things that anymore. It's because people are just allowed to like things now, which is nice. So I'm giving Talk About Becoming Your Mother 3.5 stars. Like, yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis was in, you know, several big Oscar-y type films, like Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Lindsay Lohan starred in Irish Wish. Both, yeah,